43 years ago, that clock was lovely. It was four.
For the past 40 years in
Well, I was in the grocery trade for the past 43 years and done a bit of outside kitting. But I just met her with a hatchet.
Were you prepared to use
I would
that
have used the
hatchet?
hatchet when the first man come through the door, and I told him that. So then they argued here for a long time, and they went in and got a policeman and brought him out, and I told him the same. Then they went and they brought the van was in Killane, they brought the van and they backed her up here to the door, and there was anything up till a dozen in it. And then the policeman went and got the sergeant in Killane, and he come out and he himself thought it was a raw deal. So he went into the council and he said he couldn't find anybody in the council. The one was the usual stunt the county councils, sending from one to the other, playing cat and mouse, one blaming it on the other. And
offered him an alternative shop if he wanted to continue in business, but he said no, that he wasn't continuing in business. And we then realised that he had bought premises and it was going to take him some little time to get them ready for occupation. So we offered him an alternative house if he wanted one as a standby to tide him over, because that particular section, he was his.
And they were all working in the mill. The mill was going full swing then. It was a different place than it is today. There was no motor cars in them days, so nearly all horse-drawn vehicles then. There was very few bikes. They could hardly afford a bicycle then. Well, it's a different place altogether.
Vacate the premises and let the council go ahead with the demolition.
Well, what did in fact...
The sewer's not ready, the toilet's not ready, the main thing. The money, the compensation. I said on move when I get paid out, the compensation. And it was
Build up the compensation.
The main thing, according to the district valuer that's acting for us, was that he needed the figures showing Mr. Fee's turnover and profits for a period of years, about 3 years before the vesting order. And the figures that Mr. Fee gave were the figures after the vesting order, which have no bearing on the thing at all. Compensation is always based on what the man lost up to the date of the vesting order.
Was Mr. Fee himself aware of this over these 5 years?
Well, now, he may not have been aware at the very beginning, but it was very early on that it was obvious this was the hold-up. And I had letters in the file, in fact I showed them to you earlier today, where we had written to Mr. Fee and told him that if he would submit these figures, it should be easy to settle the compensation.
I think it was entirely fair to evict Mr. Fee.
Well, the council probably would never want to evict anybody, but after 5 years, I mean, there had to come some time that we had to say, look, you just have to go. And
Bitter towards the council.
oh, very. Oh, well, they're dictators. They just tell you what to do.
This is Killyleagh Castle, and it is here that our story begins. For around about 1650, this was the home of the 3rd Viscount Clandeboy and his wife Alice. Now, early in her married life, this determined lady made 2 discoveries. First, that the Viscount was impotent, and secondly, that according to his father's will, the Killyleagh estate was to pass to his 5 Hamilton cousins, if he died without issue. Quite undaunted, the Lady Alice one night broke into the tower room where the archives were kept. She found the will and burnt it with her bedroom candle. And then, 2 months later, she poisoned her husband and triumphantly buried him in Bangor, taking the precaution, I may add, of having his corpse disemboweled and the intestines burned. Next, she married a wealthy Scottish peer, but her enjoyment was to be short-lived, for the Hamilton cousins knew that the estate should be theirs, and they filed suit against her. And for 2 generations, while a legal battle was fought out in Dublin, the Killilea estates were impounded by the court. Curiously enough, the matter ended when a servant here came across the wrapper that had been around the will, and which the Lady Alice had carelessly thrown away. It was, in fact, a valid copy of the original document. Probate was granted, and the lands in dispute were to be equally divided between the 2 heads of the Hamilton family, 2 cousins, Gawne and Anne. The court, indeed, in its wisdom, went so far as to draw a mathematical line dividing the estate into 2 exactly equal halves. But paper is one thing, practice another, for the line divided Killilea Castle so that Gawne got the keep, while the courtyard and gatehouse went to Anne. And so, for years, Gawne's family were trespassers if they used their own front gate. Years later, Anne's granddaughter married Sir James Blackwood of Clandeboy and was created Baroness Dufferin in her own right. In 1847, when the first Marquis of Dufferin came of age, he took a decision. I will no longer, he said, keep a man from his own front door. And he gave over his part of Killilea Castle to his Hamilton kinsman who lived there. In return, however, he demanded a consideration. Inspired by romantic memories of Sir Walter Scott, he devised a peppercorn rent in the shape of a golden rose and a golden spur to be presented on each alternate year. Even in 1862, when Lord Dufferin married the eldest daughter of the Hamiltons of Killilea, the annual rent remained unchanged. In fact, today, only one thing is changed. If you were invited to a dinner party here at Clandeboy today, you'd find in front of each guest at the dinner table, among the glittering silver and the cut glass, a rose, its golden spikes closely intertwining a golden spur, a symbol of the union of 2 famous Ulster families, a fitting end to a family feud which the wicked Lady Alice started over 300 years ago.
Yes, I think it's a good point. Indeed, the department list by regions, and that's the reason we've got here. Otherwise, it would be very remarkable to find this is 3,000th, as you say, on the list.
Now, surely one of the strengths of this building is that it has been rebuilt and modified over the years. Now, by limiting now the scope for rebuilding, isn't the Department of the Environment acting in the very worst interests of this castle?
Well, I hope not, and indeed not. The idea is that we're taking a stock of the good buildings in the country, and we're also giving assistance, material assistance, to the owners, so that it's not merely a question of getting permission, but it's hoped that an owner will be getting financial assistance to look after buildings, because there's no doubt a building of this size costs a great deal of money to look after.
Mr. Dixon, even to a complete layman like me, this is a most impressive hall and staircase, but what do you personally most admire about it?
Well, it is terrifically lavish, isn't it? Almost everything you see inside the house nowadays is 19th century, part of the recasting by Charles Lanyon and Henry Lynn, and it's in the very rich Mannerist classicism of the early 17th century, with lots of surface decoration looking rather as though it's been cut out in a pastry pattern, very flat against the pilasters and columns and so on. And then some very cheerful carving, like this lion on the stairs here, and the Neptune and Mermaid up above one of the principal doorways.